So think about Kashmir in the spring. Picture Gulmarg. Usually those incredible snow-covered slopes just starting to give way to these really vibrant green meadows.
Yeah, alive with energy.
Exactly. Normally it's a lot, maybe film crews, people trying to get the last bit of skiing in, adventure seekers.
Right. And Sonamarg, too, the meadow of gold.
Mhm.
Those fields are usually just spectacular, buzzing with trekkers, families.
Just soaking it all in. For years, these two spots have really been the heart, the crown jewels, you could say, of Kashmir's tourism, pulling in millions.
Millions? Gulmarg alone saw, what was it, almost 1.5 million visitors just back in 2022. It's a massive draw.
Iconic, right? That whole scene.
Absolutely. And it's more than just scenery, isn't it? It's deeply woven into the economy, the local culture, that constant flow of people. It has a huge footprint.
It really does. Okay, but now imagine that same scene, but silent. Just this really eerie quiet over the slopes, over the meadows. Yeah, hotel booking ledgers, just blank pages. Hotel owners, people who normally can't find enough rooms for everyone, they're facing something unheard of, 0 bookings in many places.
0. That's hard to even comprehend in peak season. A first in years for many, I bet.
It's a complete reversal. So the big question we're tackling today is, what's behind the sudden, really dramatic stillness in these normally bustling parts of Kashmir?
Yeah, what happened? Because these places are usually so full of life, and now quiet. There's got to be a reason beyond just, the usual ebb and flow.
And the reason, well, it's maybe not what you'd first expect. It seems the trigger for this emptiness in Gulmarg and Sonamarg actually happened quite a distance away, about 150 kilometers over in Pahalgam.
Pahalgam, right.
Back on April 22nd this year, 2025, a tourist convoy traveling in the Anantnag district was attacked. 2 tourists, visitors from Maharashtra, were injured.
And that single event.
It sent immediate shockwaves. Just like that, a ripple of fear spread right through the entire tourism industry.
It's striking how fast that fear took hold and how intensely. It wasn't just seen as a localized incident somehow. It immediately changed the perception of the whole region.
Exactly. Because, up until that moment, Kashmir's tourism had been doing so well, really on an amazing upward curve since about 2021.
It really had been. Record numbers were being reported.
Yeah, I remember the houseboats on Dal Lake?
Yep.
Booked solid for weeks on end. And Srinagar's Tulip Garden this spring just bursting with color, packed with visitors. It genuinely felt like Kashmir was, reclaiming its top spot.
That whole recovery period was powerful. It really showed the resilience there and, well, the undeniable magnetic pull of the landscape. It was a positive story unfolding.
Things getting better, peace returning, and then this attack happened. It was like slamming on the brakes, hard. I remember reading something from Abdul Wahid Malik. He heads the Kashmir Hotels and Restaurant Owners Federation.
Right.
He said something like, 1 minute we're trending for our beauty, the next we're trending for all the wrong reasons. That really hits home, doesn't it?
It really does. It just underscores how fragile tourism can be.
Yeah.
Especially in places with a history of conflict. All that positive momentum.
Yeah.
Gone. Just like that. Because of one event. Even one that's geographically pretty far off.
And that's the really crucial part here. Gulmarg and Sonamarg. They were completely untouched by what happened in Pahalgam. Miles away, no incidents there at all.
Yet they're bearing the brunt of the fallout.
Exactly. Naseem Ahmad, he's a hotelier in Gulmarg. He made this point that stuck with me. He said, Pahalgam is a good distance from Gulmarg, but tourists just see Kashmir. They don't look at a map, they see the headlines.
And that speaks volumes about how we process risk and information, doesn't it? Especially when fear gets involved. That broad brushstroke impression often just wipes out the geographical details.
Yeah.
And the media plays a massive role. Even if the reporting on the incident itself is accurate, the headlines can create this much wider panic. Kashmir in chaos, terror in paradise, things like that.
Oh, absolutely. Those headlines create an immediate negative vibe, even if the reality on the ground in specific places is completely different.
And the numbers, well, they just lay bare the impact of that fear.
They really do. Get this. Just last December 2024, for Christmas and New Year, every single one of Gulmarg's 900 hotel rooms, all 1,800 beds booked solid, completely full.
100% occupancy.
Not a room to be had. Now, fast forward to May 2025. The occupancy rate in both Gulmarg and Sonamarg has just plummeted. We're talking maybe around 5%.
5%. From 100% just a few months earlier. That's not just a dip, that's a cliff edge, a 95% drop.
It's staggering.
Yeah.
And that number, that 5%, it represents this massive economic shockwave hitting those communities.
You really have to think about the scale of that. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The economic ripple effect is huge. Just in Gulmarg, you've got over 6,000 people directly employed by the 59 resorts there.
Directly, yeah.
And then think about all the others whose livelihoods depend indirectly on tourists showing up. The poniwalas, the guys offering sled rides, the local guides, the travel agents, the shopkeepers.
It branches out everywhere.
We're talking nearly 100,000 people just in the Gulmarg area alone who rely in some way on that tourist income. So empty hotels. It's way bigger than just the hotels.
And Sonamarg, while maybe smaller in scale, has its own extensive network. Same story there. Families, small businesses, entire local economies built around visitors coming.
Yeah. I heard from Shahzad Rasool, he runs a hotel up in Sonamarg, and he shared something pretty tough. He said he's had to let go of half his staff already.
Wow.
And he stressed, these aren't just employees, they're like extended family. It really brings home the personal cost, the human side of this sudden downturn.
Absolutely. These decisions have real faces, real families behind them.
And it's not just impacting the locals. I read this story about Priya Sharma, a teacher from Delhi. She'd planned this whole family trip, Gulmarg, for her daughter's birthday. It sounded lovely. But after the news of the attack, her husband just felt it was too risky. Understandable, maybe, but they've canceled Kashmir, and now they're going to Himachal Pradesh instead.
And that anecdote, Priya Sharma's story, it's probably being repeated thousands of times over, right?
Exactly.
People making that same calculation, perceived risk versus the desire to visit. And that collective shift in plans is what leads directly to those empty hotels and quiet slopes.
It's tough, especially when you consider, Kashmir's tourism sector has shown incredible resilience before.
It really has.
Think back to the really difficult period of militancy in the 90s, or even the uncertainty around the Article 370 changes in 2019. There were major disruptions then, too.
But it always bounced back. The draw of the place is just so strong.
It is. In fact, remember 2021, when international travel was basically off the table due to the pandemic? Gulmarg's hotels were completely booked out with domestic tourists, well into the spring season.
That's right. It showed the huge domestic demand.
And things like the Kilo India Winter Games, held there in 2020 and 2021, they really helped cement Gulmarg's reputation as a serious winter sports hub.
All that groundwork laid, building that reputation, that history of bouncing back is important context here. It shows the fundamentals are strong, the beauty, the infrastructure, it's all still there.
And Sonamarg, too, they've been working really hard to become more of a year-round destination, investing in heating, better snow clearance, trying to build that winter tourism market.
Making their businesses more sustainable, less reliant on just a few peak months. Shahzad Rasool mentioned that effort.
Yeah, and the really frustrating part, before this April attack, Kashmir was actually having its best tourism run in years.
The numbers were looking great.
Fantastic. In just the first 3 months of 2025, over 500,000 tourists visited the valley. Over 500,000 people.
Wow.
Srinagar's Tulip Garden alone attracted 200,000 visitors this spring. And even the high-end places like the Khyber Resort in Gulmarg, they apparently had bookings stretching right into July.
Which is unusual for July. Usually the monsoon starts to slow things down a bit.
Right, so the demand was definitely there. The momentum was huge. People wanted to come.
All the pieces were in place, which makes this sudden stop even more jarring, I suppose.
Totally. So it really boils down to this gap, doesn't it? This gap between perception and reality.
Perception versus reality. That's the core issue.
The attack in Pahalgam was tragic, absolutely horrific for those involved. But it was an isolated incident, geographically contained.
And the government has responded, right?
Yeah.
Increased security, assurances about safety.
Yes, they're trying to reassure people, but the reality on the ground in Gulmarg and Sonamarg hasn't actually changed. They remain peaceful. There haven't been any security issues.
But bridging that gap,
yeah,
that's the challenge. The fear, amplified by headlines, by social media, it's tough to counter that narrative once it takes hold.
It really is. Ralph Turnbull, he's the head of the Travel Agents Association of Kashmir. He put it very bluntly. He said, people hear Kashmir and attack in the same sentence, and that's it. They're out. Decision made.
That immediate association, it's powerful.
He also talked about social media, how things just get blown way out of proportion. He mentioned some ridiculous posts claiming Kashmir was like a war zone.
Oh, dear.
Apparently, it got a sarcastic reply from a local saying the only war was over the last piece of Rogan Josh at dinner. Which kind of highlights the disconnect,
It does. That contrast between the online panic and the actual day-to-day life on the ground, that's a huge hurdle for them to overcome right now. Misinformation just spreads like wildfire online.
And, the authorities are trying. The Jammu and Kashmir Cable Car Corporation, the ones who run the famous Gulmarg gondola.
The gondola, yeah.
They even offered full refunds for tickets booked around the time of the attack. A goodwill gesture, trying to reassure people.
A sign of confidence, trying to say, it's okay.
But despite that, those gondola cabins are still going up and down, mostly empty. The slopes are quiet. It's a very visible symbol of how deep this fear has cut.
It really is. A tangible sign.
And for the hotel owners, this isn't just about spreadsheets and occupancy rates. It's deeply personal. Many have poured their life savings into these places.
Everything they have, often.
Banking on Kashmir's tourism continuing its upward trend. That hotelier, Nasim Ahmad, we mentioned, he apparently took out a loan just last year to renovate his hotel. Now he's struggling just to cover the interest payments.
That's incredibly stressful, facing mounting debts with no income coming in.
And some are facing even worse. Mushtaq Ahmad, who chairs the Jammu and Kashmir Hoteliers Club, he voiced this very real concern that some hotels might actually have to close down permanently if things don't turn around soon.
That would be devastating, losing established businesses, jobs.
And for places like Sonamarg, it's particularly brutal because their main season is shorter anyway, right? Because of the high altitude, the heavy snows.
Exactly. As Shahzad Rasool explained, they basically got about 6 months, maybe, to earn their income for the entire year. So losing the spring season like this, it's catastrophic for them.
Absolutely catastrophic. And unfortunately, Sonamarg also had that negative attention last year with the unrelated issues around the Thajua's glacier collapses.
Right. That didn't help perceptions either, even though it was a completely different kind of safety concern, not security related. It just added to a sort of negative cloud for some visitors, perhaps.
It all compounds. And beyond the owners, there's that human cost we touched on. Staff being laid off, hours cut drastically.
People struggling to make ends meet.
Shahzad Rasool shared that story about his cook, Imran, a father of 3, asking his boss if maybe he should start selling vegetables by the roadside just to feed his family.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. It just shows the desperation, the real-world impact on ordinary working people. They're the often unseen victims in these situations.
It really hits hard. But, despite all this gloom, they're not just sitting back. There are definite efforts underway to try and revive things.
People are fighting back, trying to find solutions.
Yeah. The J&K government is apparently planning a series of events, things like music festivals, adventure sports competitions, hoping that'll attract people back.
Creating positive reasons to visit, showcasing normalcy.
They're also working with travel influencers, bloggers, trying to get the message out visually that the valley is safe, still beautiful, still welcoming.
Using those modern channels to counter the fear narrative. Those proactive steps are so important. You have to actively rebuild that confidence.
And the local hoteliers themselves, they're getting creative too, offering these staycation deals for locals, for people within Kashmir.
Encouraging local tourism, yeah.
And really significant discounts for tourists coming from other parts of India, trying to make it financially attractive. The Khyber Resort, for instance, has this book now, stay later offer.
Giving discounts for future stays, locking in some potential business down the line. Smart.
It shows real determination, doesn't it? That local resilience, that initiative, it's often the most powerful force in recovery.
It really is. Offering incentives, flexibility. It can nudge people who are on the fence about traveling. And that idea Rolf Trambu floated about a national rebranding campaign for Kashmir.
Yeah.
That makes sense too. Finding a new message, something that directly addresses the fears, but also highlights the reality, could be really effective.
Because ultimately, this crisis goes way beyond just economics, doesn't it? It impacts the very identity of Kashmir, how it's perceived by the world.
Definitely. For so long, it's been known for that stunning beauty, the warmth of the people, that resilience. A place offering peace, even amidst challenges.
And as Abdul Wahid Malik pointed out, tourists play a role in that. When they visit, they take their experiences, their stories back home. They become ambassadors, in a way.
Showing the world that Kashmir is so much more than just conflict headlines.
But when the tourists stop coming...
There's a real danger, isn't there?
Yeah.
That a single negative event starts to define the whole narrative. It overshadows the culture, the history, the beauty, the people.
Exactly. Mukhtar Shah, he's the president of the Gulmarg Hoteliers Club, he expressed that exact concern. that the valley could become sort of a cautionary tale. He talked about the pride of Gulmarg, the legacy of Sonamarg. How much is really at stake beyond just the current season's bookings?
That's a really powerful way to frame it. These places aren't just dots on a tourist map. They're integral to Kashmir's identity. Their vibrancy reflects the spirit of the whole region.
So looking forward, what seems crucial now is for people, for potential visitors, to just take a step back, look beyond the scary headlines.
Separate the fact from the fear.
Right. What happened in Pahalgam was awful, but it doesn't reflect the reality in Gulmarg or Sonamarg. Those places are still breathtaking. The hospitality is still there, genuine as ever.
As Shahzad Rasool put it, come and see for yourself. He was pretty confident about what people would find.
Yeah, he said, you leave with a full heart and a camera full of memories. It's an open invitation.
And the government obviously has a huge role now, rebuilding trust through visible security, clear communication. And the media, too, has a responsibility, I think.
To tell a full story.
Exactly. Not just the incident, but also the resilience, the safety in other areas, the efforts being made to keep Kashmir open and welcoming.
Because the return of tourism really getting Gulmarg and Sonamarg buzzing again, it hinges on that shift in perception, on people being willing to look past the fear and experience the reality.
It does.
So to you listening, maybe this is actually the moment to reconsider. That trip to Kashmir you've maybe put on hold or always dreamed about, right now, perhaps ironically, offers this really unique chance. You could experience the incredible beauty of Gulmarg, of Sonamarg, without the usual peak season crowds.
It's an opportunity, perhaps, to see that tranquility, that landscape in a way that's rarely possible. And, crucially, to directly support those local communities, the ones who really need those visitors right now.
You know, as you think about where you might travel next, maybe consider what you might actually lose by not going to Kashmir right now.
You might miss out on.
Yeah, you might miss that chance to just completely fall for the place. The mountains, the valleys, the people, the culture, that undeniable charm. It really does feel like, oh, like paradise is just waiting.